Martha and I enjoy lingering in bed for a few minutes each morning after the alarm goes off. However, despite our familiarity with the routine after many years, we still fall prey to the allure of those warm, lazy moments, knowing full well that they come with a price. These stolen minutes of relaxation must later be compensated for with a frenzied rush to prepare for work. Once, this rush also involved getting our children ready for school, but now that they're grown and gone, our mornings are characterized by more frequent indulgence in bed and a heightened sense of urgency to beat the early traffic rush. On this particular morning, my departure from the usual routine was compounded by the fact that Martha would be working late. Instead of our usual shared commute, I opted to bike to work, drawn by the promise of a splendid spring day. Hastily finishing my breakfast, I called out to Martha, only to be met with silence. Pressed for time, I shrugged off her lack of response, grabbed my keys, and headed out the door. I'm Frank McKay, a 53-year-old office manager at the State Department of Public Works, while Martha, 49, works as an administrative assistant at a local manufacturing business. We're both above average in appearance, but Martha, in particular, has a striking beauty that often turns heads. As I pedaled towards work, my phone signaled an incoming message, but I ignored it, prioritizing the safety of navigating traffic. Once at the office, I was consumed by the demands of the day, inadvertently leaving my phone untouched in my backpack until my lunch break. It was then that I discovered a string of missed calls and messages from Martha. Her first text, sent at 8:10, alerted me to my mistake in taking the wrong set of keys. The subsequent message at 8:35 hinted at her growing impatience. Listening to her voicemails, it became evident that my oversight had left her frustrated and annoyed, her tone laced with irritation and disappointment. Despite our years together, it seems there are still moments when communication falters and misunderstandings arise, leaving me to rue my absent-mindedness and the unintended discord it sows. Before listening to Martha's final voicemail, I retrieved the keys from my backpack and placed them on my desk. The message, received at 12:55, was fraught with frustration and impatience as Martha demanded the return of her keys. Her tone was sharp, nearly reaching a yell. I was taken aback by Martha's escalating anger, a trend that had become distressingly common lately. As she approached 50, I had attributed her outbursts to hormonal changes, an explanation she vehemently rejected when I suggested seeking medical advice. Our relationship had become strained, and navigating her mood swings had become increasingly challenging. However, her fury over a set of keys she didn't even need was perplexing. Fuming, I resolved not to call her, opting instead to return the keys at 5 o'clock. Arriving at Martha's workplace, I witnessed her leaving just as I arrived. Despite my efforts to catch up, she eluded me in traffic. Deciding to take a more direct route home, I was startled to spot her heading towards an unfamiliar area of town. Curiosity piqued, I followed at a distance, observing her stop at a duplex and exchange messages before abruptly leaving. Confused and suspicious, I inspected the keys, identifying one unfamiliar key that likely belonged to the mysterious location. Climbing the stairs of the duplex, I hesitated at the door, grappling with a surge of anger and betrayal. Contemplating my next move, I entertained thoughts of confrontation or legal action. However, I recognized that blind rage was not the solution. I needed to confront the situation with a clear mind, but the weight of betrayal hung heavy as I stood at the threshold, uncertain of the path ahead. Peeking into the apartment, I knew I was trespassing, but swift action might evade detection. The sight of neatly arranged mail caught my eye, and I seized a phone bill addressed to Steve Mueller, a name unfamiliar to me but potentially significant. Pocketing it, I retreated swiftly, wary of being caught snooping. Opting not to return home immediately, I hurried to a nearby hardware store to obtain a duplicate key. Upon my return, Martha's absence confirmed my suspicions that she had received a summons elsewhere, likely from her lover. Deciding to play a game of anticipation, I attempted to reach her by phone but received no answer. A text message feigned my own tardiness, prompting a curt response from Martha, confirming her disregard. As I endured a dismal evening awaiting her return, I resolved to gather evidence of her infidelity. Armed with the duplicate key and incriminating phone bill, I confronted the reality of our crumbling marriage. The discovery was a painful acknowledgement of the distance that had grown between us, rendering the question of her motives irrelevant. With our love eroded by indifference and reproach, the final revelation spelled the end of our union. While our state's laws rendered proof of adultery inconsequential in divorce proceedings, I was determined to salvage my dignity. Martha's deception would not go unexposed, and I resolved to confront her betrayal openly, sparing no effort to reclaim a semblance of self-respect. Despite fleeting thoughts of revenge, I opted for a more measured approach, mindful of preserving my future retirement plans. Anticipating Martha's return, I braced myself for the confrontation, prepared to leverage her frustration to my advantage. However, her post-tryst demeanor hinted at a softened resolve, prompting me to scrutinize her behavior with newfound vigilance, wary of the shifting dynamics in our fractured relationship. When Martha returned home, her surprise at finding me still in the living room was evident as she dropped her spare car key into the container by the door. Retrieving her own keys, she made her way to the bathroom without a word, a departure from her usual routine of engaging in post-work banter. Her abrupt retreat to the bathroom, coupled with the sound of the lock clicking shut, stirred a realization within me. This behavior, the locked bathroom door upon her return from late nights at work, had become a pattern I had failed to notice, a pattern that now seemed glaringly suspicious. As I settled in for the night, hoping for Martha to retire early, her lingering wakefulness betrayed her restless state of mind. Determined to unravel the truth, I seized the opportunity the next morning, feigning a work meeting as a pretext to equip Mueller's apartment with surveillance equipment. During my clandestine visit, I couldn't help but observe the meticulousness of his abode, pondering whether his impeccable surroundings hinted at a penchant for cleanliness or perhaps something more. Despite my efforts to remain inconspicuous, Martha's text message during my lunch break hinted at her continued absence, prompting me to schedule a meeting with a lawyer. A subsequent visit to Mueller's apartment confirmed Martha's presence, adding another layer of confirmation to her betrayal. With tomorrow looming as a pivotal day, I returned home, grappling with conflicting emotions. Despite the turmoil, I refused to relinquish control of my home, opting to reclaim the master bedroom and relegate Martha to the guest room. As I methodically moved her belongings, a sense of catharsis washed over me, each atom symbolizing a piece of the fractured bond between us. When Martha returned that evening, her disheveled appearance spoke volumes, betraying the aftermath of a prolonged liaison. Her surprise at encountering me remained unspoken, devoid of any attempt to explain her tardiness or disheveled state. The realization of her betrayal pierced me with a pain I hadn't known possible. Driven by a mix of anguish and determination, I seized her arm and led her towards the bedrooms, struggling to maintain a facade of control. Despite my own inner turmoil, I summoned a harsh assertiveness that felt foreign to me, commanding her compliance with a sharpness that startled us both. In a moment of heated confrontation, I relegated her to the guest bedroom, declaring an end to our marital bond with a ferocity that mirrored my shattered emotions. Martha, emboldened by defiance, sought to reclaim her ground, sparking a tense exchange of accusations and ultimatums. Faced with the stark reality of her infidelity, Martha recoiled, her facade of defiance crumbling in the face of my unwavering resolve. As the weight of her betrayal settled upon her, she retreated, her tears a silent admission of remorse. Closing the door with a finality that echoed the rupture of our marriage, I lingered, torn between my own hurt and a desire to inflict further pain. I would prefer to expedite this process, I stated evenly. Your prompt departure would be appreciated. Simply sign the divorce papers when they arrive, and we needn't cross paths again. Closing the door behind me, I braced myself for the finality of our separation, the echoes of Martha's sobs lingering in the air as I walked away. The next day, I retrieved my surveillance equipment from Mueller's apartment before meeting with my lawyer. With the legal proceedings set in motion, I found myself adrift, grappling with a wave of emotions that left me unable to focus at work. Seeking solace in solitude, I returned home, only to witness Martha in the process of moving out with the assistance of her new partner. Though a surge of anger welled within me, it was quickly supplanted by a profound sense of loneliness, a stark reminder of the void left in the wake of her betrayal. With no immediate family nearby, I turned to my daughters for support, their unwavering belief in my account of events offering a measure of comfort amid the turmoil. Yet, in a moment of weakness, I succumbed to the lure of alcohol, drowning my sorrows in a futile attempt to numb the pain. Reflecting on the demise of my marriage, I struggled to comprehend the reasons behind Martha's betrayal. Despite my efforts to maintain a balanced life, I found myself questioning where I had faltered, grappling with the gnawing uncertainty of what could have driven her away. As I lay in bed, consumed by thoughts of Martha and her new partner, a nagging question gnawed at me: was he somehow superior to me, particularly in the realm of intimacy? My romantic history was limited, having only been involved with 4 girlfriends before Martha entered my life. Together, we navigated the intricacies of love and passion, learning and growing with each other. Contemplating the situation further, I dismissed the notion that Martha's departure was motivated by social status. Despite his tastefully furnished apartment, there was nothing ostentatious about his lifestyle, suggesting we occupied similar financial standings. Curling into a fetal position, I grappled with the stark reality that Martha's decision to leave stemmed solely from who I am as a person. Could I change myself to salvage our relationship? The futility of such a notion weighed heavily upon me. The following morning, a ringing phone shattered the silence, heralding a confrontation I both dreaded and craved. Martha's accusations cut deep, but I refused to back down, determined to confront the truth head-on. In a moment of impulse, I dialed Martha's lover, masking my identity in a fit of anger. Yet, upon reflection, I realized the harm it could cause Martha's father, a man already burdened by his own struggles. My anger waned, replaced by a sense of empathy, prompting me to retract my actions. Reaching out to Martha, I faced her tearful inquiry with a mixture of regret and defiance, unable to ignore the pain I had inadvertently inflicted upon her and her family. "Keep your cool, Martha," I said, struggling to maintain composure. "That call earlier wasn't your dad chatting with your boy Toy, it was me. I care about your dad too much to let him be blindsided by your actions. Listen up." With a mixture of frustration and determination, I made my intentions clear to Martha, emphasizing the consequences of her actions on her family. Despite her tearful apologies, the damage had been done, leaving me grappling with a storm of emotions. Months later, as the divorce papers arrived, I found myself grappling with a sense of emptiness, unable to shake the lingering void left by the collapse of my marriage. Despite attempts to move on, the prospect of new relationships only served to deepen my sense of isolation. However, a moment of clarity struck me one evening as I returned to my solitary apartment. Amidst the mundane task of cleaning, I found solace in the company of my imaginary companions, recognizing a desire for retribution simmering beneath the surface. Determined to seek justice, I devised a plan to track Martha and Mueller, planting a GPS tracker on his car and covertly observing their interactions from afar. Despite the risk, I refused to let them evade accountability for their actions. Over the following weeks, I conducted several reconnaissance missions to Mueller's apartment while monitoring his routines. Observing his lunch habits, I orchestrated a chance encounter at a nearby restaurant with a friend, Terry, who was briefed on our agenda. Casually, Terry probed about my adjustment to single life, providing an opportunity for me to vent my frustrations about Martha's deceitful nature. I recounted an incident from 3 years prior, highlighting her penchant for lies, albeit trivial ones. Redirecting the conversation, we delved into football analysis, dissecting the Seahawks' prospects. The following day, during my customary visit to Mueller's apartment, I executed a meticulously planned sabotage, leaving subtle disruptions in my wake. With each item on my checklist ticked off, I indulged in acts of minor vandalism, relishing the potential chaos I was sowing. From leaving a faucet dripping to strategically placing Martha's toothbrush, I took pleasure in the thought of disrupting the tranquility of Mueller's pristine abode. Each disturbance was carefully calculated, designed to sow seeds of discord without detection. As the weeks passed, my covert operations continued, each action executed with precision and stealth. Despite my desire to witness the fallout firsthand, I relied on hearsay from my children, who hinted at tensions brewing between Martha and Mueller. Though I couldn't witness the fruits of my labor, the knowledge that my actions had unsettled their relationship provided a small sense of satisfaction amidst the wreckage of my own shattered marriage. It was time to escalate the pressure on the two adulterers. One day, a friend strategically tripped near Mueller, leaving traces of lipstick on his shirt and blonde hair on his shoulder, attributes markedly different from Martha's dark hair. The following week, I visited Mueller's apartment and discreetly placed a pair of underwear among his belongings, a stark contrast to our distinct styles. My victory was imminent when I observed Mueller leaving work at an unusual hour. I tailed him to his apartment, where he made a furtive entrance before swiftly returning to his workplace. Gotcha, I muttered triumphantly. The next day, I meticulously staged evidence of infidelity within Mueller's apartment. From torn condom wrappers to disturbed bed sheets and misplaced items, each detail was meticulously orchestrated to incriminate him. As the piece de resistance, I indulged in a grand finale, tampering with his possessions and leaving behind a scene of disarray. Later that evening, my youngest daughter, Tess, called in distress. Martha had sought refuge at the police station, claiming abuse at the hands of Mueller. Tess pleaded for my assistance, appealing to my sense of familial duty. Reluctantly, I agreed to help, albeit with a heavy heart. Arriving at the police station, I maintained a cold distance from Martha, despite her tearful attempts to reconcile. While I offered her a ride, I made it clear that our interaction was solely at Tess's behest and that reconciliation was out of the question. Departing the station, I resisted the urge to look back, knowing that Martha's sobs were a poignant reminder of the tumultuous aftermath of her betrayal. Once Martha settled into the car, I inquired, "Where to?" "Home," she replied quietly. Wordlessly, I steered toward our destination. Martha only protested when we approached Mueller's Street and halted in front of the apartment. "I don't want to go there," she confessed, fighting back tears. "Yet, here we are," I retorted. "Mueller is currently behind bars, affording you ample time to gather your belongings and make your escape." After a brief pause, she exited the car and began retrieving her possessions, stuffing them into garbage bags. Her departure from our shared life had left her with scant belongings, hastening the process. Once finished, we departed. After a while, Martha broke the silence, her voice tinged with apprehension. "Where are we headed?" she queried. "We're going to your father's," I informed her bluntly. "You stated your desire to return home. That's your only option now." Silence enveloped us as we traversed the suburbs towards her father's residence. "I never got the chance to apologize," Martha interjected, breaking the quietude. "I'm sorry for my actions. I was foolish and got caught cheating. I own up to that. But my love for you never waned. I just lost sight of its significance. I never truly wanted to be with Steve. We had little in common. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you." I remained silent, refusing to dignify her apology with a response. Could I reassure her? No. Could I forgive her? Not yet. My silence likely inflicted more wounds than any verbal condemnation could have. I struggled to comprehend how someone could profess love yet inflict such profound hurt. Approaching her father's abode, Martha glanced my way. "What should I tell Dad?" she inquired. I was rendered speechless. What a revelation! Nearly a year had passed, and she hadn't disclosed our divorce to her father? "Are you serious?" I exclaimed. "Harvey doesn't know we're divorced?" "I only mentioned our marital issues," Martha admitted. "Well, now you're in a predicament," I remarked sternly. "Craft a plausible explanation, but don't pin the blame on me, or I'll set the record straight with him." As the evening wore on, I refrained from aiding Martha in transferring her belongings into her father's abode. Partly, I relished in her discomfort. Yet, I also harbored an aversion to conversing with Harvey. The following day, I stationed my car across the street from Mueller's residence. He returned home shortly before noon, signaling the opportune moment to deliver the final blow to their affair. Clutching a modest bottle of Chilean wine, a mere $10 investment, I ascended the stairs. Mueller's expression twisted in surprise upon recognizing me. "Hello," I greeted him. "Though we've never crossed paths, I'm Frank McKay, Martha Sharp's ex-husband." Extending the bottle of wine, I watched as he accepted it. "Consider this a token of sincerity, a replacement for the wine I consumed," I remarked. Delving into my pocket, I produced his apartment key and handed it over. "And I have no use for this anymore. Martha vacated last night." Grinning from ear to ear, I strode back to my car, a sense of liberation coursing through me. I found solace in the knowledge that Mueller's remorse over losing his $900 bottle of Chateau Montelena would far surpass any regret over losing Martha. With a newfound buoyancy in my step, I embrace the sweet taste of revenge. I believe it's time for me to move forward. The end.